When did you say, hey, I think I could make money doing this? So today on Business Under Fire, we have Clint Fiore here with Dealonomy, which is a business brokerage based out of
Texas,
but working nationally. Yeah. And backstory, I was actually looking at podcast for entrepreneur stuff just to kind of find some information and see who I kind of clicked with and liked their stuff. And I came across you as a guest on, I just don't remember which podcast. And I watched two more on the way back from Corpus. So that's how we're sitting here today. And you drove in from Bernie, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Love the studio.
And well, thank you. This was a afterthought. I was going to build the airplane, the apartment above us. And then I thought, I've been going to this business coach in Nashville. And I thought, man, why don't I build a podcast studio?
Yeah.
And so I put the curtain up. But the problem with the curtain, when the hangar door opens, crap goes everywhere. And so then my girlfriend says, I know you're not going to keep this like this for long. And she was right. 10 days later. Yep. We're walling it in and then putting AC in here. And but I've enjoyed it. And what I get out of this is the information that I learned from you guys. And so it's been a crazy about 6 months on this. And the information, again, something we were talking about was you're in business brokerage, right?
Yes, sir.
And everybody always thinks, man, we've got to bootstrap this business and get it off the ground. And we got to go buy computers. We got to go buy phone systems. We got to go buy sales systems. Like, how are we going to get our first customer? And I was listening to one of your podcasts, and it's a crazy light bulb moment for me because you don't have to go that route.
Right, yeah. I started as a startup guy in my 20s. I didn't have any capital. I had a dream, and I ended up selling the dream to an angel investor who backed me on my first startup. And that's how I got into business, and that's how I thought you had to get into business was, raise money and launch a startup. Mm-hmm. I've done it a few times, but when I exited my first company, I had, for the first time ever, a little bit of capital. And now I had some experience, and I wanted to do a business myself that didn't need outside partners and investors. And so I just started Googling franchise opportunities and things like that, just to look for opportunities of something I could start myself. But I was still thinking startup guy because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
And then that led me to probably it was the website bizbuysell.com, which is the biggest business for sale marketplace. I found it about 2013. Mm-hmm. And today there's so much knowledge out there. There's so many people teaching about buying businesses. But in 2013, after I'd exited my first startup, nobody was teaching and talking about this. I just kind of stumbled into it looking for franchise opportunities, but eventually saw, oh my gosh, there's people trying to sell their established businesses.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that, it never registered to me either that was a thing you could do. I just figured, buying businesses was reserved for the ultra rich or something like that. I didn't know it was something that normal people could access. And I started just nerding out on it and saying, you know what, I want to do this. I've done a couple startups at this point, and I know how hard that getting off the ground stage is.
It's the getting off the ground stage, whether it's my background has been landscaping, the nursery business, and restaurants and coffee shops. And getting off the ground and launching takes a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot of work. And I didn't realize the difference in being able to walk into a business that you bought and instantly having systems in place, whether they're good or not. Those are easier to tweak than creating new systems. And your first Friday at the nursery, well, there's business, there's customers coming in the door. And so for somebody focused on that is, we call them entrepreneurs, they've wanted to work for themselves. I feel like this podcast episode is going to open their thinking to a whole nother world about getting into a business. And with that said, there's always challenges. How can someone and what will it cost someone to get into a business or buy a business?
So I've become a huge advocate of buying businesses, especially for first-time entrepreneurs, versus starting them up. The statistics are staggering about how risky startups are versus buying established businesses. And just to put it into simple layman's terms, it's only about 5% of small businesses that start ever hit $1 million of revenue.
Yep.
So you've got about a 95% chance that you're not going to hit $1 million of revenue. And for me, having looked at hundreds and hundreds of businesses, financials, $1 million of revenue is kind of where it starts to get fun. It's like kind of where you start to be able to make some decent money in most business models as the owner. And so that's just a staggering realization, is that so many, 19 out of 20 never really get to that fun part.
Yep.
But buying a business flips that risk profile on its head to where if you find a business that's already crossed that $1 million revenue threshold and has been in business for 5 years, your odds of still being in business in 5 years after you buy it are over 90%. And so, like, instead of 90% chance you're going to be out of business in 5 years, you now have a 90% chance you're going to be in business in 5 years.
That is staggering.
And it's actually not more expensive either, because startups cost money too.
Yeah.
And startups, you either have to fund it yourself out of your savings, or if you get debt, it's often at atrocious terms. You have to give up a bunch of equity to investors, or really high interest rates, because it's extremely risky, and anyone that lends to startups knows that.
Yep.
And but buying established businesses, you can access cheaper debt because you have historical financials, historical earnings that you can get underwritten. And we do business acquisitions all the time where the buyer's bringing 5 to 10, 15, 20% down, that range. And yes, there's ways to structure it 0% down too, and I know that's popular to talk about from the gurus and stuff, but I also think it's not the most likely scenario. I think, like, planning on, if you're going to buy $1 million business, having about $100K is a good starting point to being able to leverage into one.
The seller is going to want something most of the time, unless you're family. But we've structured things where you don't have to give them $100K right away, but you're going to need to give them $50K up front before you get in the door, and then maybe wait a month or two and give them another $50K. And so how have you seen these business deals structured where they're buying business? And this is a way loaded question to keep you talking.
Yeah, we could talk the whole time about structuring.
I know, but I want to give people an idea of the possibilities of what can happen if they're digging for a business to buy.
Yeah. Let me give you a right down the fairway example of the most common deal structure we see. So most people don't realize there's a program out there called SBA 7A lending. Had to clear my throat there. Okay. The SBA 7A lending program allows you to buy businesses based on the historical cash flow of the business, and they're not underwriting based on your personal balance sheet. So they're not underwriting based on your collateral to pledge here. If you go to a community bank, just your local bank, and say, hey, I want to buy this dry cleaning business down the street, they're going to just say, how much money do you got? Show me your brokerage account, show me your real estate. What can you pledge for this? Because they have no appetite.
And we need collateral.
Yeah, they have no appetite for lending on a cash flowing business. They just want to have their collateral. But SBA 7A is a really unique thing to America. No other country quite has a program like this. And it's really a jobs continuity program, because 60% of our economy is supported by small businesses. And a lot of these folks have no successors lined up. And if they just close the business, it risks all the jobs associated with those. And so they created kind of an easy button loan program for people. As long as you have the down payment and good credit and some relevant skills, you can kind of present yourself as a good buyer candidate. Then they're going to underwrite it based on the historical profits of the company, not based on how much collateral you can pledge for this company.
And to go a little deeper on the SBA stuff, what exactly is the SBA doing? Because you'll go to the SBA, you'll do all the loan process through an SBA lender, and then they're backing it for...
Yeah, you don't actually go to the SBA. You go to banks that do SBA lending. If anyone needs a recommendation on that, feel free to hit me up with an email or a message on any of the platforms. We've got some good ones we work with we can send your way. But basically, the SBA just provides a government guarantee. So if the loan goes south, the government will make that bank whole for the loss as long as it complies with the SBA rules.
So the SBA is a parachute for the bank that's doing the loan.
And that's why the bank will make you the loan,
Yes.
even though there's not hard collateral for the whole thing. So an example would be, let's say you buy a digital marketing agency or something it's making $400,000 a year in profit, and you're trying to buy it for $1 million or $1.5 million, something like that. The traditional banks want nothing to do with that because there's no assets. There's maybe like a couple laptop computers, but there's no physical stuff. It's just you're buying expectations of future earnings based on the historical earnings of the company, and that's called goodwill value. So most of that deal minus so if it's $1 million deal, 2,000 of that's physical assets,
computers,
and 998,000 of that is goodwill.
There's a good example of that. We had a guy on here that does, he owns all of the Baccarat games, backgammon, checkers, everything online. He only owns 3 computers.
Yep.
And that company does several $1 million a month, but all he has is a couple computers.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great compared to the nursery landscaping business.
Yeah, there's some very sexy distributed team businesses that are asset light, that are cash flow heavy, and those are what all the buyers like. And SBA lenders love those deals, but traditional lenders will not touch them with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. Are you getting a lot of sellers contacting you to sell those businesses right now?
Oh, yeah.
And how did you get into the business brokerage business?
It was really born out of frustration, which is, I think, a classic thing that ADD entrepreneurs end up doing, which is kind of, I'm like that classic, like, gotta do a startup, gotta chase a new idea kind of guy. And so I was in this process of trying to buy a business. So I had some capital. I'm on bizbuysell.com looking at deals. And I'm like, man, I'm a perfect guy to buy one of these businesses because I have some money, I have some experience. This should be a no-brainer. Someone should sell me a business. And once I figured out I wanted to do it, I thought, let's just do it. Let's do it right now. And I ended up striking out for close to a year because it was like everything I saw was just bait and switch crap. It was like...
Was that from the business brokers that you were dealing with?
So what I found is a lot of these business for sale marketplaces have just no quality control whatsoever. And so it's buyer beware, and you have just completely false ads on there. You have stuff that looks really great, but when you call about it, they're like, oh, that sold 6 months ago. I forgot to take that ad down. Sorry about that. Let's talk to you about something else. Or you get one that the numbers look really great in the ad, and then you get the actual financials and they look terrible. And you get these kind of like sleazy used car salesman type of brokers. Sometimes they never even call you back, so you get the runaround. You get overpriced for sale by owner deals where you just kind of have the crack smoking owner that wants to get $5 million for their company that's not worth $1 million. And it's just wading through that jungle of bad deals and bait and switch and poor representation that made me snap and say,
you just got fed up.
Yeah, I just got fed up. And I said, man, if this is this hard for me,
Yep.
who kind of has some experience and some capital and is a serious buyer, it's got to be super hard for everyone else. and someone needs to make this easier to buy a business. And so that's what got me into the game, was just kind of like, all right, let's do one more startup here. But this time I want to be the broker that I wish existed when I was a buyer.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense, because I've bought and sold a few businesses, looked into other ones while we were doing this. And to be quite honest, I've never had a good experience buying or selling a business. Now, with that said, there is one business broker that I like. Their wife ended up buying my lawn company, Mile High Yard Works. We're still friends today. But even with that process and knowing those people, it's still a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to what we were talking about on even digging through what you were digging through is easier than starting a business on your own. And so you saw this problem, and it's a real problem everywhere. Mm-hmm. If you want to go out and buy a restaurant right now and you start contacting business brokers, I'm here to tell you, and I believe you are too, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
The process is not fun. And so you saw that this problem exists, and what did you start doing or believing in that got you to think, all right, here, we're going to change this and we're going to fix this? What are the things that you've put in place to make it a better experience?
Yeah. So it was kind of just, let's do the basics right. It's kind of like any other industry, like I think business brokers get a bad rap because it's kind of the 80-20 rule, where there's like 80% that are kind of dabbling in it and aren't that great, but there's 20% that are true professionals and are good. But if you only ever meet one business broker, 4-to-1 odds you're going to get one of the kind of jokers out there that's not that great. And so you're going to broad brushstroke say this whole industry sucks. And that's what a lot of buyers experience. But there are some really great ones out there, and it's important to find a good one if you're going to work with a broker. And so I just hadn't seen very good ones. And I was like, man, if you just answered your freaking phone, only represented quality companies and not stuff that was blatant tax fraud and other, and didn't let the seller price the business. You got to value the business based on what it's realistically worth and what it will underwrite for with the SBA loan, not just what the seller wants for it. Because I think a lot of brokers they take a spaghetti at the wall approach. They tell the seller, hey, what do you want for this? We'll put it out there and see what happens, because they know as long as they get an exclusive listing agreement, they can ask overprice for it, and eventually they'll go to you 6 months later and be like, sorry, Bob, I wanted to get you $5 million too, but nobody's making an offer. So can we drop the price to $2 million? And that's their strategy. And I think that's just doing a disservice to the seller.
Is the price of the business to the actual owner and the price that it's worth ever the same thing?
No.
I started learning that a long time ago when these guys would have 20 yards that they're mowing and maybe do a little bit of landscaping. I'm like, this is a $5 million landscape business.
It's very acutely exaggerated. So when you're trying to buy a house, like you just see all these people putting houses on the market, and you think, man, everybody's putting it about 10% over what it probably is going to sell for. And brokers real estate brokers kind of put up with that. And if the client pushes them to ask a little bit higher than they want, but business brokers and business owners, it's not 10% more. Sometimes it's 100%, 200% higher than what it's really going to trade for. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think like part of that is these small business owners, they start Googling or listening to podcasts and trying to figure out like, what's my company worth? And the most common information you get is bigger deals. So like if you go to business exit stories and podcasts, like there's one I really like called Built to Sell Radio. And it's all these sellers talking about their companies that they sold. But most of them are like middle market companies that sold for like $20 to $200 million, which are, they were earning multiple millions of profit and they got a big multiple for it. And that stuff's like easier to hear about and find because people love telling those big exit stories. But when you got a mom and pop business like the nursery you had or the local restaurant or something like that, you don't get those types of multiples. It's much lower multiples of earnings. And so I think you have sometimes the sellers are just trying to find information and they find the wrong information for a deal category that's just they're not in that league, and they think that should apply to their little business, and it doesn't.
And to help people without them having to go to Google, can you give us one or two examples of a business that sold and what multiplier it sold for? Because everybody seems to think, oh, I'm going to get 3 times my earnings, or they think I'm going to get 10 times my my net. And so if you had to help you out on that, if you had a business that had recurring monthly revenue, a pest control business, a lawn service business, something where they have contracts every month, on average, do you know what multiple those would sell for?
Yeah, it's very, very size dependent. So the bigger the business, the bigger the multiples get, and the smaller the multiples are. But let me just bracket it to like a few different brackets. So when you're not making at least $100,000 as the owner of this company, all bets are off. It's super hard to sell your business because all the buyers are like, why would I buy that when I could just go get a job and make 80 grand?
And when you say $100,000, you're referring to a W-2 paid from that company to Sir Owner, or are you talking about
plus the net profit? So I'm talking like the net profit of the company plus what the owner pays themselves.
Right. And that has to be shown in your breakdown of revenue on your business tax returns and your personal tax return.
Yeah, we at least have to be able to prove it because that's a whole kind of subtopic. There's an art called financial recasting that brokers do, and that's where we reverse engineer your tax strategy to show the total benefits of ownership. So I'll give you one example here. You may have on a given year a tax return that says you made $100,000, but the broker says this owner is really benefiting $200,000 from owning this company.
Right.
And you say, how? How did you double it from 100 to 200? Well, you have to look at what's called add backs. Add backs are things that are like discretionary spending that the business did that was actually a tax strategy that the owner was using to reduce their taxable income, but it's still, if you bought the business, it would still be benefit to you, the owner. So a popular example is like they bought an F-350 Platinum pickup truck last year that they 100% bonus depreciated down, and that was a $100,000 purchase, and they were able to legally first year depreciate it, and that adds $100,000 of earnings power because if you own that company, you didn't have to buy that F-350 Platinum that the owner just decided to buy as their personal vehicle.
Right.
So if you owned it, and you could have just taken out $200K of profit instead of $100K plus a truck, And so we look for stuff like that, and that shows the true earnings power of the business, and that's the number that typically runs through that multiple. It's not the tax return income, it's the adjusted income after we find those pay, perks, and benefits, discretionary purchases of the owner. We add all that up, run that through the multiple, and that's how we value small businesses.
And if another example would be if a owner had a house, let's say a beach house that they were paying out of the business because they have another restaurant down there, or a golf cart business, and they had to stay down there and that business paid for that house, that would be another source of revenue to bring back into earnings.
Yeah, as long as it's not shady. Like as long as it's a legit tax mitigation strategy that they're willing to show the IRS and show, because if it's something that's blatantly kind of tax fraud, like pocketing cash, not reporting cash, or something like that, that's a real common one, especially in like restaurants and some retail and stuff like that, is they'll underreport cash. Yeah. And they might know how much they underreported cash, but I don't want to hear it as a broker. Yeah. Because if I can't get you paid on that, if I can't prove it, we can't document it. And so I tell the owners in that situation, hey man, you can only steal it once. Yeah. Like if you steal it from the IRS, we're not going to be able to get you paid for it and get you a multiple on that money at exit.
The restaurant thing though, I've got 4 restaurants. And so because of the, amount of credit cards and stuff that come through there, there's hardly any cash now.
It's changing, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like I think that the people think it's a lot of cash now, and it's not, because so many people use debit cards. So getting back to the multiplier for a small business at $100,000.
Yeah, so I think if you were to take like ones that are doing 100,000 to 500,000, most of those trade for between about a 2 to 3 times multiple of adjusted earnings.
Now, when you say adjusted earnings, if they've got an F-250 that they're producing revenue with that business, and they've got some trailers or other equipment, are we using the revenue plus fair market value of the equipment, or is the equipment included because it produces that revenue?
Yeah, the working equipment that's required to generate that profit is usually baked into that asking price in that earnings multiple approach. But the things that wouldn't be included would be like the personal stuff. So the owner's personal platinum that they never actually use to on a job site, they just use driving around as the business owner. Like, we would typically exclude that from the sale and add back the costs on the books for that one. But if there's 5 other trucks that the crew's driving around and doing the landscaping work out of, those are included in the purchase price, and those are not add backs. Those are into the legitimate cost structure of earning that income, and so those are included.
And then, so as a negotiating tool, as a buyer or seller, you could say, look, because of the trucks are here, I want a 2.5 times or a 3 time multiplier. If you don't want the trucks, that's fine. I'll take 2.25. But at the 100,000 to $500,000 mark, the highest multiplier that you're probably going to see is 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's always exceptions, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty hard to get much higher than that, unless it's just like the most dialed in, automatic, very hands off, recurring revenue, easy button, income. Because basically, multiples are just a predictor of the stability of the future income stream. And so if it's like all in annuities or something, or just something where it's super sticky, customers that never cancel and have long-term contracts, you can get a higher multiple because it's low risk.
Yeah.
Multiples are just a reverse engineering of risk.
Yeah.
But if it's like every year, like if a good example on the other side of that would be project-based construction revenue, where every year you only have a handful of big projects. If you don't sell 5 big projects, if you sell 4, you go from making $1 million to breaking even to losing $1 million based on one project to the next. That's scary as a buyer, and you're not going to pay a huge multiple for that. And so it's just, even if the profit's good on a good year, the predictability of that profit, the stability of that profit is what gives the buyers comfort to pay a higher multiple.
Oh, I'm sure you've seen businesses like that. Their revenues have dropped this year. If they're in home building or electricians or any of that stuff, they've taken a massive hit the past few years. And pre-COVID and then up to COVID, they were just, slam dunking it and killing it. What an adjustment to have to make.
And that's a challenging thing for brokers right now when you have a down year, because a lot of these companies, especially the construction and home services related ones like pool builders, anyone that was like, a lot of those had
they were
just killing it post-COVID.
Yes.
In like 21, 22, 23, there was this period of like bonanza spending. It was like stimulus spending.
Yes.
Everyone's staying home, and so everyone's remodeling their home and doing stuff. And so these guys were just raking it in
at any price because you couldn't get anybody. So,
and prices were up because of the supply chain stuff, and so that comes through on the financials too. So just the prices increasing raises the financials as well as the increased demand. And then that seller says, all right, I'm ready to sell, but it's 24, 25, and things are down 20, 30% from their peak.
Yeah.
They want to get paid on their peak previous years.
Yep.
But I'm like, man, that is now irrelevant.
Well, and I don't consider myself an idiot. I'm a pretty smart buyer, but we bought a restaurant down in Port Aransas, and the 3 years of numbers that they gave us were, right before COVID, and so we bought at a high. And as a business owner, we can sit there and put our heads down and cry about it, or we can, get to the grind and do what it takes. And of those businesses, even at their high, we did $1 million more our first year. But you're seeing that trend down in Port Aransas, because Port Aransas is a vacation town down in Texas. They're very lenient on the COVID stuff. You might not see a mask down there even during the middle of full-blown COVID, and that place was just booming and doing great. So the COVID years, I guess you're still dealing with those on businesses.
Yeah, it's starting to get in the rearview mirror at this point.
Yeah.
I think 24 was the first set of financials where most businesses are pretty clear of all the stimulus stuff, all the supply and demand disruptions that it created. But yeah, 20 to 23, you really have to adjust. You really have to take those financials with a grain of salt, because some stuff happened in those years that may never happen again, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so I think underwriters and brokers and sellers, like their 2024 financials and then the current, like the 2025 interims, like how good are you doing this year versus what were you doing last year in 2024? That's going to be more telling to your valuation than the 2020 to 2023 financials, because of those crazy disruptions we had those years.
Which, if there's somebody listening and they're looking for a business, they need to pay attention to what we just talked about for the 3 minutes, because it can be several hundreds or millions of dollars off with those COVID based businesses. So that'll keep you from getting shot in the foot. Now, if the company's doing $500,000 to $1 million or $2 or $3 million, is that when the multiplier is going to go up?
Yeah. So once you're at like $500,000 and up, like I would say $500,000 to $1 million, we typically see at least a 3x, unless it's project-based construction or something that's really challenging. But you start to get above 3 typically there. And then when you get to $1 million in EBITDA, which is just basically net profit, but then the EBITDA adjustments, which is adding back interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, to show kind of the earnings power if the company was debt-free on a normal year. That's what a lot of people start to talk about is the EBITDA multiple.
Right.
And once you hit $1 million, a whole other class of buyer starts being interested, and that would be typically like private equity groups that are looking for add-on acquisitions. So there's a lot of, everybody's heard of private equity.
Yeah.
They're invading small business space big time. But they typically, their playbook is they'll buy what they call a platform company. And they typically want to buy one that's doing $5 million or more in profit or EBITDA earnings. But then they'll reach down into Main Street to buy $1 million or $2 million earning company and bolt it onto that platform. So that's their strategy. It's called platform plus bolt-on acquisitions. And so once you got the big money private equity buyers looking at you, which typically doesn't occur until you hit 7 figures of that bottom line number, then the multiples can go up dramatically. So then you might start seeing a 5, a 10, a 15, those types of multiples for your business. And it's very sector dependent. You brought up pest control earlier. That's a crazy hot one right now, where a lot of big players are trying to buy these mid-sized mom and pop pest control companies and add them to their big platforms. And they're paying crazy multiples for those things. And so that's happening in a lot of sectors. And so, part of the strategy that I really like for just normal Joe Blow business guys that are getting into acquisitions and entrepreneurship is if you can buy a business that's underneath the radar of private equity. So let's say you buy one that's doing $500,000 of profit, and you might pay a 3x for that. You pay $1.5 million. But then if you can double it from there and get even just past that $1 million threshold, I know it's easier said than done doubling a business, but it's way easier to take one from 500 to $1 million than it is to take one from 0 to 500.
I'm here to tell you.
way easier.
Yeah.
And so if you are able to do that, even if it takes you 5 or 10 years, you don't just double the business value, you quadruple or better, because you get the growth, the doubling of the growth, but you also get multiple expansions. So now when you sell, you might sell it for a 5, 6, 7x of that million. So let me break down the math. So let's say you get a 6x of $1 million earning company.
That's $6 million bucks.
6 million buckaroos.
Yeah.
But if you bought it at a 3x multiple at $500,000, that would be $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So you make the spread, that $4.5 million increase. But what's crazy about the ROI on these is you didn't put $1.5 million down when you bought that business.
Yeah.
You probably put $150,000 down.
Yeah.
And so if you pull this off, you put $150,000 down.
Yeah.
From the very first month you owned the business, you were in the black.
Yes.
You made profit the entire time. Let's say that took you 5 years. And you had to service your $1.35 million of acquisition debt, right?
$13,000 a month-ish.
Yeah, so
That's already getting paid from a business that's producing income.
right. So let's say it's out of that $500,000 of earnings, $150,000 is supporting your acquisition debt. So you're still making $350 for those 5 years.
Yeah.
So first off, your $150K down payment, you're getting $350 annual return on that. So that's where it gets crazy, because that's what is that, 200% ROI
Yeah.
on your down payment, even after debt service. But then when you go to sell, you get the spread from that 1.5 to the 6. So you get $4.5 million, but along the way, you've made $350 times 5 years. So there's another $1.5 million you made. And then that $150,000 you were paying for debt service retired some of that debt. And so you add all that up, you got $4.5 million from the spread. You got $1.5 million from the earnings you made along the way.
Yeah.
And you paid off maybe $500,000 of debt. And bam, you just made $6.5 million from a $150,000 investment in a 5-year time period. And that's what makes this space so freaking exciting.
So is that, and people hear that, and I went to that Adam Coffey was in Nashville, and he does this on a huge level. Do you know who he is? Or
Yeah,
no?
I've heard of him.
He does this on a gigantic level, ex-CEO of General Electric, and he's put together, and he has the capital and investors to do this with gigantic companies. But what you're talking about is a realistic thing that can happen, but Joe Blow can't go in and do this. You've got to have some type of business sense.
Yeah.
You've got to have a game plan, and then you've got to have a good business broker that can start sending you deals to look at to do this. And it's not a get rich quick scheme either. This is, sweat equity.
Yeah, everything about this is hard.
Day-to-day operations.
Yep.
You're dealing with people, personalities, employees. But if somebody wanted to do this and they did want to go work for themselves, which is what I'm an advocate for, and they had worked in a higher level of a company, and they do know how to manage people, manage operations, this is a thing that they could actually get out and do and retire in 5 years or 6 years. And it's just you're presenting a scenario here that most people, even several business owners, have never heard of.
Yeah.
And so the information that you're giving us right now is just, it's invalid, and people don't think about it.
Yeah.
But it's a reality, and you see it every day.
Oh yeah.
You see it every day. And so when you I guess we've cleared up some of the air on what these people think their business is worth, but 100 to 500,000, you're going to be between 2 and 3
most of the time.
and even probably up to $1 million, you might get 3. But after $1 million is where the rubber is going to start meeting the road.
Yeah, sometimes those $800,000 earning companies can get 4 or 5x. That's if they're in the right industry, but you typically take a pretty good jump when you hit $1 million, and maybe even another jump at $2 million, just because the higher you go up, if you were to visualize this marketplace, it's like a wedding cake where that first layer is huge. And those are kind of like the really small mom and pops that's that 95%.
Because they're everywhere.
They never even hit $1 million of revenue, and they're just kind of like somebody that is a business in name only, but it's really like they own their own job.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that are self-employed. They might even have some employees. They have an LLC. They have a company. They're making a living, but acquirers don't really see that like a business because there's not enough there. There's not enough there to make a living and service debt. So the current owner is making a living because they don't have acquisition debt.
Right.
They bootstrapped it from scratch. And so that first base layer gets largely overlooked by buyers. But once you get up into a higher level, the quantity of deals available goes down drastically at each level. It gets way smaller of opportunities available. But at each increasing level, the buyers have deeper pockets. And it's like bigger, more well-capitalized buyers competing for less deals, which creates higher multiples at each level up that you get to.
That's a good example. So if somebody does have a business, and they want to prep their business to sell, can you walk us through kind of a timeline and some tips and tricks on that if they are wanting to sell their business in the next few years? How far ahead would you even think that they need to start thinking about this?
I encourage people to think about it at least 3 years in advance, ideally, because banks and buyers typically look hardest at the last 3 years. Once you get past 3 years, there's so much different 3 years ago that it starts to become pretty irrelevant. And so you want to run, I would say, 3 years of really clean financials. So if you've got your mother-in-law doing your books and she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she'll do it for real cheap or free, like, it's time to get a real bookkeeper. It's time to get a real accountant looking over your stuff. Make sure that your just stuff is accurate. You can't get paid on what you can't prove. And so the top 3 tips I give business owners getting ready to sell is clean books, clean books, clean books. Like, that's my top 3 things.
Yeah.
So you got to run a clean set of books. Anything you're doing that's, let's call it creative with tax mitigation. Let's stop doing creative stuff and let's show profit and let's pay some taxes if we need to, because hiding profit from the IRS is, in the last 3 years of business ownership, you're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Well, and another way of saying that is if you're hiding $1 and you're getting 2.5 times the multiple, or 3 times, or 10 times, and you hid $10, you're skipping out on 25, or you're skipping out on 100.
Let's pretend you're a landscaper and your neighbor says, "Hey, will you do mine? I'll pay you cash."
Yeah.
And it's just $1,000 little job. And you're like, "Sweet, $1,000. No one has to know about this. I'll just pocket that $1,000." What does that really save you? When you're the business owner, you're probably have an all-in tax rate of like 20 to 30%. And so you might save $200 of taxes from your income taxes if you pocket that $1,000. But if you actually log that in your accounting system, and because you're gonna log all your expenses associated with that, that would be $1,000 more of true profit to your bottom line if you didn't pocket that cash, and then you run that through a 3x multiple. You just saved yourself $200 in taxes by sacrificing $3,000 of enterprise value at exit. And that's why I say you're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, and that's foolish. And so you really got to run a tight ship, show good, strong earnings. And then the other thing that buyers really want to see, especially with small businesses, is they want to know, when you go away, is the business going to be okay? Because so many aren't okay when the seller leaves. And so the other thing I tell people that are thinking about selling is you got to get yourself as much as possible into kind of like the owner's seat, or at least like the GM seat of your business. And that means don't do all the critical sales functions. Don't do all the critical operational functions of the business. Owner stuff, which all buyers typically can do, is like managing the finances, managing people. Like, that opens up. Lots of buyers can do that.
How often do you see that where the owner is the GM and the owner is, and they're trying to get out, And that drops. This is an assumption, but if that's the case, the multiplier on the business. I mean, if the owner's
sometimes it's unsellable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be unsellable. And so I've run across some situations where you have someone that's making $1 million a year. Like they're legit on their tax return making $1 million a year. And I go and I tell them your business is worth $0 and cannot be sold.
And that's the spread again, like we just discussed, is that owner's probably already thinking his or her business is worth like $5 million.
Yeah, right.
And then you're delivering that news to them.
Yeah, because it might be, I'm just trying to give like concrete examples. But let's say the business is named after your name. You're the face of the business. You're the subject matter expert. You're the one that does all this high skilled, high valuable work. And all the people come because of your reputation over the past 20, 30 years. And then when you want to sell, like you can't sell yourself. Like you just can't sell it. And so you could be anyone from like the master grandfather clock repairman in the world. But like, unless you find another master grandfather clock repairman that can fill your shoes, you've got an unsellable business. But if you've got a system to repair grandfather clocks that it can reliably generate leads of grandfather clocks and technicians that know how to repair grandfather clocks, and you just recruit and train the technicians and like oversee that and manage the people, manage the processes, manage the finances, then we can get you paid on your grandfather clock repairman business. But you can't be the guy, like so that's part of it. And it's an ego check.
Big time.
Because business owners like to feel important, right? Like you like to feel like the big man that like, look how good I am. And you have pride in your craftsmanship or your skills. But like it's a paradox, because when you go to sell, the less important you are, the more valuable your business is.
Yeah, I was just thinking you to make yourself the least important guy in your business. And I think that's a challenge with all the business owners that I've known and deal with and run around with. It's a major challenge. They started it. They are the business. And eventually we all want to get out. That's one of the things that I've seen with some of the older people that we maintain their landscaping or their wedding venues or these entrepreneurs that are in their 70s, they still have that fire, never goes away for them to keep producing in their type A personalities. But, reality hits them in the face that they've got to get out because eventually they're either going to die or they've got to get out. And then they've been that person and they're in it and then they get zero for it.
Yeah. It's super hard to sell if you don't think about this in advance and have clean books and a company that can function somewhat without you, with just you doing oversight and management, but without you doing the critical functions of that revenue. That's what you need to be able to sell your business. Yeah.
So what other kind of things are you working on right now? What kind of fun stuff do you have in the air for business? Or talk to us about how Dealonomy came about. And
yeah. Dealonomy is the big fun hotness right now. It's the big project we just launched and just got it off the ground.
How long ago?
2 weeks ago.
This thing's pretty new.
We're brand new. You're the second podcast I've been on since launch, because we've been head down building this thing for a year, and we just came up to show the world it. We're super excited about it. I can give you kind of a brief backstory of how we got there. But so for 10 years, after I told that story about I was a frustrated buyer, I wanted to build a business brokerage that would be the one I wish existed when I was a Texas buyer. And we did that. So we had a really successful small team that did deals all over Texas, and we just did a quality first approach. We only sold clean businesses that I would want to buy if I was the buyer, and we made great matches to great buyers, negotiated the deals, got them done. And then during COVID, something started changing with me. First off, I had the worst possible pipeline of deals when COVID hit. I'm talking, I had like oil and gas stuff, restaurants, catering companies, hospitality businesses in Fredericksburg, Texas, and stuff. Yeah, wedding venue, like all the stuff that just got annihilated during the lockdowns. And all of a sudden, I went from 15 projects I'm working on to like 5. And I had a little bit of time on my hands, and nobody's signing up new stuff because the world's just frozen, right? And trying to figure out where do we go from here. I started perusing Twitter for the first time in those years, just trying to learn stuff about crypto or something like that. I was just an anonymous stalker account, like trying to spend some of my free time learning something new. But then I discovered there was kind of a robust business buying ecosystem niche on that platform, but there was no brokers, and I felt like there was a lot of misinformation and false information being taught on there. And I was like, man, I've been doing this for years, and I know how these business deals work, especially on Main Street. And somebody needs to set the record straight and tell people what's up here. And so I just decided on January 1st, I think it was 2021, or I think it was 21 or 22, I just launched a Clint Fiore Twitter account, and I just started writing full on like how-to threads, like how to buy a business, how to value a business, how to find a great business to buy, how brokers will screw you over, how sellers will screw you over, like all these different like hard-hitting things. But it was from real knowledge, and people were hungry for that, and they saw the authenticity of that. And then what ended up happening is I grew this I had some stuff go niche viral, and before I knew it, I was becoming kind of like one of the more popular business brokers on the internet, because I was one of the only ones storytelling and teaching my heart out.
Yeah.
And I had a philosophy, that quality first approach, that was buyer friendly and transparent and high integrity, that really resonated with people that had the similar bad experiences that I had as a buyer. And so people all over the country started saying, man, I wish you weren't just in Texas, because I would love to, I don't even like business brokers, but I like you and I like your company, and I wish we could buy a business from you. And I heard that hundreds and hundreds of times, and I started realizing a few things. First off, we need to go bigger. But secondly, I started realizing there's a huge supply and demand imbalance. Over those years, a lot of people that had the COVID downtime, they started consuming buy a business content.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming on your podcast telling folks, you just had this realization recently. Hey, you can buy a business. You don't have to start one.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have had that realization over the past 3 to 5 years. Buyers have come flooding in, and there's been some mainstream mega influencers that are teaching, quit your job, go buy a boring business. I mean, with millions of followers.
Yeah.
And people are getting turned on to this idea, especially in light of the arbitrary layoffs and the crazy crap that's happening at the big company level.
Yeah.
And you realize I don't really have control on my life here. And just owning my own business and taking control sounds really freaking cool. And they're kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, and they're coming over in droves wanting to find a business to buy. And they're all having this exact same experience I had 10 years ago, which is, oh crap, I really want to do this, but I can't find a good deal. And this is way harder than I thought. And I'm striking out. And it was just the same experience I was having, and nothing had changed in this industry in 10 years. I had built my own little nice company, but we're just a regional sell-side firm. But like the buyers across the country are now having the exact same pain I was having as a little Texas buyer 10 years ago. And I was like, it's time to do something about this. And because I built kind of a national audience, some credibility in the space, I had the reps, I could just practice what I preach here.
Right.
I decided to go ahead and take a bigger swing. So I raised money last year, $3 million.
Nice.
From some of the top industry leaders. And so I'm talking like professors at all the big MBA programs that are teaching entrepreneurship through acquisition. Some of them are my investors. Best-selling authors, Walker Dybel, who wrote Buy Then Build, which, plugging his book, if you haven't read Buy Then Build, it's like the book to read about learning about acquisition entrepreneurship. So Walker, hope you sell some books from this show, but it's a phenomenal book. He's one of our investors. And so just quite a few, like the best M&A attorney in Texas that's part of the fastest growing M&A firm in the country. Like he's on my advisory board.
Nice.
And so I have like all these thought leaders and influential people that all see the same problem.
Yeah.
And we said, let's create a unique solution that scales, that's going to solve the buy side problem in a way that's never been done before. And let's change the industry. And so that's what Dealonomy is. So if you're buying a business, you can still go to all the other traditional sites like BizBuySell, which I'm a fan of BizBuySell because it was the gateway drug for me to get into this.
Yeah.
And there's still good stuff on there,
But
there's just a lot of bad stuff on there too.
You're going to be dealing with a lot of headaches.
Yeah, so it's just kind of buyer beware because it's a huge marketplace with no quality control, and so you have to. It feels like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and you're sorting through a lot of the hay, and you're looking for your needle. Dealonomy is designed to be a needle store, so instead of sorting through hay, you just walk in and there's a wall full of needles, and you just go pick you one out, take it to the register, and buy it, and that saves you potentially a year of your life from having to search. And so what Dealonomy is it's a two-sided marketplace where we source every seller. They run through a rigorous quality control check, and then we match make to our buyer network, and we serve as the facilitator every time. So we're an intermediary brokerage. So we're not working for the seller, we're working for the deal. So we work for the buyer and the seller. No other brokers allowed. We keep it pure. We don't allow other brokers on because we don't want to pollute it with bad deals and overpriced deals. So Dealonomy is going to be the good deals only platform. We want it to be your preferred first stop when you're shopping for a business because they're all going to be, our minimum is $250,000 of earnings. So they're all going to be making at least $250,000 or more in adjusted earnings or profit. And then they're all going to have clean enough financials to get through bank underwriting.
Yeah.
And so there's SBA lenders that live on our platform that pre-qualify our deals. So they've got a bow on them ready to go.
Nice.
Lenders ready to lend. We value them up front with the sellers, and we tell them realistically what your company's going to trade at. And if you think your company's worth $5 million and we value you between 2.5 and 3, we won't let you go on there with a $5 million asking price. We just won't. We say, hey, we're going to get you between 2.5 and 3, and here's all the evidence as to why if you try to get more than 3, it just breaks all the math.
Yeah.
It won't underwrite. You're never going to get that, and we'll show you why. And if you're ready to take a realistic offer in the 2.5 to 3 range, which is what it's really worth, then we'll list you for free. We'll run the whole process, and we guarantee you we'll get you offers in that price range in 90 days or less.
Dang.
And then for the seller, we're not even going to charge you a dime for that privilege. So it's the only place you can sell your business free of charge, 0% commission, guaranteed offers in 90 days or less. If we don't deliver, we give the seller a $10,000 check. It's a $10,000 guarantee. And so there's no other brokerage like this that is the fast, free, guaranteed results way to sell your business. And then for buyers, there's no platform where all the deals are good, and we make it super easy to navigate. So it's just free to sign up, sign NDAs. You go straight into a fully populated deal room that has a video interview with us and the seller. It has the full multi-year financial recast, a SWOT analysis, like all this cool stuff you'd want to see. And then you can click make an offer right on the site, and it'll build your LOI right on the site. So you can evaluate the deal, build your LOI, submit your LOI, your letter of intent, all on the site, and you can get your offer accepted, and that dumps you straight into due diligence right on the platform. So it's if you've navigated this other ways, it's this archaic, like waiting on the email attachment, waiting on the DocuSign,
waiting on the seller,
waiting on this,
waiting on the broker,
on the information.
Just a mess.
But imagine if it was all there with a bow on it, ready to go. And you were just on this high-tech, high-speed platform where you could just go stage to stage to stage all on the website with lenders ready to lend. Like, that would be a dream situation for a buyer.
It would, and you haven't even hit on the emotions that the buyers and sellers are going through while this is going on. Sleepless nights, talks with buddies. Like, this does not come easy for buyers and sellers. It is sometimes the most emotional thing they've ever dealt with their life, and then you're laying it on a platform where it's like
100%,
way easier.
And it's not just the technology. The tech is great, but every M&A advisor on our platform is someone that's an award-winning, experienced M&A advisor that's worked on buy side and sell side, and they're kind of just sitting in the middle saying, hey guys, like, we think 2.5 to 3 million is a fair range. We're going to take offers in this range, but it's just going to be up to the seller whose offer they like the best and what person they like the best. We're going to facilitate this conversation. We're going to facilitate this transaction, make sure everybody's happy, and get you we just want to find the win-win deal between these parties and run a competitive, open process. And that's what we're doing. And that helps take some of that emotional charge out of it, because you have a seasoned, experienced person that's done this 100+ times, holding your hand through this process versus just thrown into the octagon with the seller.
Man, you're packaging up a business masterpiece for these, in my opinion. And I've been through the cycle. And man, that sounds like the way to go if they were looking for a business. Just I can remember I'm dealing with a buddy right now that's selling a business, and I hear it. I eat breakfast with him almost every day. And so to see all of the crap that they're going through and know that all the crap that I've been through when I've done these transactions and crying at kitchen tables with the owners of a restaurant that owned it for 47 years and I bought it, and those emotions, and to be able to go and use your platform to take care of, first of all, the time for this transaction. How quick can these things get done with you guys?
We're new, but our historical time with Bison Business, which was my previous company that merged into Dealonomy, as we were averaging about 9 months.
Yeah.
But we think we can get it to 6 in this process. It's hard to get much faster than that, because just closing an SBA loan usually takes like 70 to 90 days. So that's a few months after you've already matched up the buyer, agreed on the terms and all that. Like, it takes a couple months just to close the deal, get through due diligence and underwriting, legal, and close the deal. But if we can get, spend about a month getting this business ready to sell, packaging it up, getting all the information ready, and putting a bow on it, if you will, getting it pre-underwritten with the banks, then when we hit the green button and launch this thing to our network, we can usually get a buyer match in weeks instead of months, and then move that much faster. So we're trying to make it as frictionless and quick as possible, but without skipping any steps, because you can't. You still have to follow the rules of the SBA loans. When you get an SBA loan, you still have to get legal docs in place. You still have to paper this thing right. It still takes some nuance to get through due diligence and all that. But we're going to get it as absolutely quick as possible and as painless as possible, because buyers want to be owning and operating a business. They don't want to turn into a full-time shopper of businesses. We want to get them on that journey when they're ready, without them having to take a year of their life to get it done.
Man, I can't wait to watch and see how this shakes out for you. And for people that don't know, I didn't even know Clint. I think I saw you. I can't remember the guy's podcast up in Dallas, but y'all were either on the phone or something. And then I was listening to the other podcast, and I had heard that you had grown a Twitter following, but I'm not on Twitter. So I didn't know any of this. And then you're telling it to me, and I love it. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see. We're doing my first deal we're doing. Have you ever had any events where you get people to, a hotel or your airplane hangar before to share any of this, or no?
We do more like casual events.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a series of meetups across the country. My next one's next week in Charlotte. So any listeners in Charlotte, I think it's June 3rd. I'm out there. And then I'm in a few different cities. I'm kind of doing a roadshow tour. We're just taking over restaurants and bars and doing a networking event. I'm speaking at some of them, and I'm speaking at some stages at some bigger M&A events this year. But yeah, I've never done like the seminar thing or the I don't know. I've never done courses or workshops. I just sell businesses, and I have a team that sells businesses, and that's what we know.
I'm doing an event because kind of part of my passion is getting people into business and have them to stop talking about it and do it. Like I said, we call them entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And working for myself has given me everything I ever wanted in life. Like I couldn't want more, and I actually couldn't handle more. I got stuff everywhere. I've stopped making excuses of why I can't be in this town or that town. Just my time is limited. And, so I'm a big proponent for being self-employed because, again, it's provided me everything I could have ever wanted. But so I don't know the date yet, but June 9th, June 12th, I'm having a deal at the airplane hangar here, teaching people how to start their own business. And that's everything from, and it's basic, naming your business, checking accounts, DBA, credit card processing, invoicing. What do we do when we get a customer? And for some reason, I just have a passion of doing that. I did it up in Lubbock with the college kids. It was called Business and Beers with Bonner. And we would get 20 people in the room. But when we get, we'll see how it goes. And again, it's like this podcast. I have no expectations. So I have no expectations for who's going to come. We're going to push it. We're going to try and we're going to see what happens. But I'll have to mention your name if any of those guys are, looking to buy a business. That's one of the things, again, that popped into my head the other day. I'm like, oh. And it's so dumb because I've done it and I've seen how much easier it is to buy a business and get it off the ground. So I wish you luck on all of this tour. It sounds like you're on the right track. I'm no expert. I tell people I'm just a dumb lawn guy. But it sounds like the way to go on being in a transaction, on getting a business. What else did I have for you? I had a couple other questions. It's been really interesting, and you're filling us all up with knowledge for sure. What? So you're going to make this road trip. How many cities are you going to, and how did this get planned out?
And I just like meeting people in real life. And sometimes you get stuck, behind your keyboard and your podcast too much. You need to go out and shake hands. And people that are buying and selling businesses are just my kind of people. Yeah. I just love entrepreneurs, and I love people that are betting on themselves and taking the leap into becoming entrepreneurs. I think that's just, that's amazing. I remember when I did that, and it was a turning point in my life that changed everything. Is when I left the safety of the W-2 job and became a business owner for the first time. It changed me forever. I'll never look back. I'll probably never be a normal W-2 ever again.
It'd be hard.
And I love being there when we enable that to happen for people, and especially when we give them a really high odds of success situation, like buying a solid business as their starting point is such a great high odds of success starting point. So we love doing it. And then I've just made some lifelong friends. So any of you that are big into social media, I think you are blowing it if you don't take it into the real world some way or another. So I love what you're doing, teaching people at the hangar in real life how to start a business, because that's doing God's work, man. Like, somebody needs to teach people how to do that. And if it's on your heart, then you're just being, obedient to God. Like, somebody needs to do that. Maybe it's you.
I enjoy it.
And you get a lot of satisfaction from that. But like, I've been able to do some crazy stuff. One of the stories was in late 2023. I turned 40, and I wanted to do an adventure to celebrate my 40th birthday. And for some reason, I got in my head I wanted to climb Mount KILIMANJRO.
Yeah.
In Tanzania. And it's the tallest mountain in Africa. And it was one of those things that was like, if I don't do this now,
Did you do it?
I did it. But it was like a physically extremely challenging thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm not, as you can tell if you're watching on video, I'm not like an extreme athlete or anything. I'm just a normal guy.
Mathlete. I'm good at math.
I'm a mathlete.
Business numbers.
Yeah. But I was like, if I don't do this now, I may miss the window of being able to ever do this again. And it's a thing that, like, my wife had no interest in doing. And most of my other friends are living kind of normal lives that can't just take off away from their families and jobs for a couple weeks to go to East Africa and climb a huge mountain. And I didn't really just want to go by myself. And so I was like, I just posted a tweet, and I was like, hey, I'm turning 40 this year. I think I want to go climb Mount KILIMANJRO. Anybody want to go? Like in the SMB world and small to mid-sized business world, that's kind of like my audience on there. And sure enough, like, a bunch of people were interested, and we got an expedition of 12 random.
Holy crud.
We got 12 random friends from the internet that most of us have never met in real life, but we were connected through small business acquisition entrepreneurship. And that was like our common thread. And so we were all kind of like buddies, or we followed each other's content stuff. We jumped on planes, flew to the other side of the world, and conquered the highest mountain in Africa together.
What a story.
And it's like, that is when people are like, what's the point of social media? And it's like, it opens up real life stuff.
Dude, you will remember that for the rest of your life.
Some of those people that were on that mountain with me are now investors in my company. and they're supporting this new, what I think is going to be an industry disrupting idea of
I
dealonomy.
feel like it too.
And I gained lifelong friends, shared adventures, gained business partners, got in on deals I would have never gotten in on because I was just brave enough to like put myself out there. And I think a lot of people are they're worried about being judged.
Yeah.
Or like, you have imposter syndrome, or it's like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good looking enough. And if you can just show up and be your authentic self and express your desires and give first and like bless people, then like good stuff comes to you.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of like my story with social media. Is I was not real big on it until those COVID years, but when I decided to just kind of go all in and teach and give, and I didn't have a plan, like I didn't have a grand strategy.
Yeah.
I just came on there like someone needs to tell people how this works.
Yes.
And nobody's actually teaching this accurately. And so I saw a need, and I just worked my heart out to fill that need that resonated with people. And then sales is basically like, I learned this from a teenager. Selling Cutco knives was one of my first sales jobs. And it's like, it's build rapport, present problem, offer solution, close. That was the 4 steps of sales I learned.
Yeah.
And what social media allows you to do is build rapport at scale that's unimaginable any other way. So you can get thousands and thousands of people that feel like they know you, like you, trust you, and would fly to the other side of the world and climb a mountain with you, would use you to sell their business they've been running for 30 years, would trust you to help them buy a business and cash out their 401k and go all in on betting their life savings on this like random company they found through you. It's that like, it's rapport building on steroids that opens up all of these opportunities for you. And so I just encourage anyone to get active and put yourself out there, tell your story. And even if you're in this like little bitty niche, like I was, like a Texas business broker that's nerdy about acquisition entrepreneurship, even though there's only a handful of people in my community that give any crap about that.
Right.
Nationally, there's a lot. Like nationally, there's a lot of people that are into that little niche.
Yeah.
And so you can expand your horizons and become, a medium fish in a much bigger pond, if you broaden your reach through social media. And we're in the greatest time to be alive, where you can just do stuff like that for no cost, just your time.
And that's again just wonderful information. And I believe that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you here, is to get rid of, I guess, the disinformation of what buying and selling a business is about, because there's so much online that it's just garbage. Yeah. And so, and then the reach that you talk about on social media and the imposter syndrome, I thought about having a podcast like maybe just right around Christmas. And I said, man, I'm just going to do this. And it is hard to put yourself out there and the imposter syndrome of, hey, why am I doing this? And, so on and so forth. But the reality of the information that I produce based on business is I do have 215 employees. We are in the top 1% of business producers in the U.S. And so the information that you get out of here is probably pretty good information, although I feel like a lawn guy at heart. And I tell everybody, I'm just a lawn dude. I'm just a lawn dude. But, that's why we're here today. And I'm glad that we had you on. I'm glad that you took the drive from Bernie to come over here. I know that's one of the things that I really like about being an entrepreneur. Sometimes you're taking that drive from Bernie coming over to Seguin, and you're kind of going, what am I doing? Where am I going? But every meeting that I have an opportunity to go to that looks like it has any fruit to it, I'm going. Yeah. I'm turning over the rock. I'm turning over the stone. And who knows what can happen out of, just like you said, social media, but who knows what can happen out of this meeting today. And
one relationship can change your life.
I know. And it's the people you meet. The people that you meet solve the problems that you have. You don't need more money. You need more people. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing deals right now that would have never happened if it weren't for this podcast and some of the people that I meet. And you just like climbing that mountain with people, or doing deals that And how scary was it for you to even post that and get on the plane?
Yeah.
And turned out to be one of the things you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it's neat. But so Clint, where can people find you at when they want to buy or sell their business?
So it's super easy. Dealonomy.com. It's deal, DEALONOMY. That's how you find our business. And it's real easy to navigate. Just follow the prompts if you want to buy or sell. And then if you want to follow me or my personal social media, my name's Clint Fiore. It's Clint, and Fiore is Fiore. And I'm on all the major social networks just as my name, at Clint Fiore usually. And I'd love to have a connection with you, and I appreciate you having me on today.
I'm glad, man. Well, let's wrap it up and get our day on. It's kind of early in the morning, which I like because we got the whole day ahead of us.
Yeah, man.
So I look forward. I appreciate your time and the information that you provided. This Business Under Fire, and thank you guys for listening.